Hey, what's up? I'm Jay Moss, and today I want to talk about a new plugin that came out today, and I'm actually super excited about that. And I know that's exactly what someone like me in my position would say, but this plugin is great. Is it a compressor? Yes. Are there plenty of compressor plugins out in the world? Of course there are, but this one has that special sauce as far as for what I look for in a plugin. See, okay, I'm this perfect generation of engineer that started recording right when digital was not exactly the mainstay, but it was perfectly in that transition period. And now new engineers are just of course I use plugins and they just sound good. And that's just the modern world that we live in. But when I was starting out as an engineer, there was all this heat with do you need gear? Do you not need gear? Whatever it is, we all come to our own conclusions. If you've watched my videos, you know where my conclusions on that stuff are. But anyway, this has some of the stuff that I love from analog gear. We track with a ton of analog gear here. And I do it because it does a certain sort of how do I put this? It's you got this, Jay. You got this. There's an attenuation. If you don't know what attenuation means, it just means a lessening of the high end, but it's not dark. It's smooth. It's creamy, punchy, not brittle, and exciting. That's when I think about analog gear, I think about that, you know? So anyway, this new plugin is called the RS124. It's from the Abbey Road Collection from Waves. And yes, you think Beatles, of course, because when you think Abbey Road, you think Beatles. But when I use it, I hear this aggressive, clampy, just nice to have in the box curve that I've been looking for. There's a few other compressors on my list that I totally love that do something like this. But honestly, most of the digital compressors I use, I feel compression is the thing in the digital domain where I'm oh, I miss my analog distressors. But this one has a little bit of that unquantifiable mojo. It just feels good to turn up. So inside of the plugin, there's two different modes. There's studio mode, I think another one called cutting mode. They have fixed attack times. So what that means is the attack time is how long, okay, here we go. This is your threshold. I am your compressor threshold. And this feels weird. This is signal, right? I don't know why, I don't know, but all right. All right, so here's your threshold. Here is your signal. This is weird, but yeah, when the signal crosses the threshold, it tells the compressor to do something. Now, on a lot of compressors, we have variable attack times, like an API 2500 or a distressor 1176, that type of thing. So this one has a static attack time. That is to say that while you can adjust the release, you cannot adjust the attack. And of course, you're thinking well, why is that good? Wouldn't I want to adjust the attack? You might, but also when we're being creative, it's just kind of cool to look at a plugin and say, this has a cool voice. This has a cool voice. And just lean into that and make art with that. And if it's not the right tool for the job, then so be it. So anyway, with all of that being said, the studio mode, it has a slightly quicker attack time. I wouldn't call it ultra quick, but it's a little grabbier. It's a little creamier. The cutting mode, they slowed the attack time down a little bit. It lets more transient through. So if you want things to sound a little bit more pokey and percussive, but still capture the general character of this particular plugin, compressor, unit, whatever, emulation, that's still totally possible. All right, so let's talk more rock. Anyway, let's just dive in. We'll use it in a session. I'm sure you would much rather hear it than hear me. I know I would. Let's go. Okay, so we're in the project and I want to show you just kind of how it sounds. So what you're seeing here is a stem master. This is the reference mix, but right below that, we got drums, we got bass, they do bass drops, we got lead guitar, we got normal guitar, some random sound clips, some acoustic stuff, some ensemble, which sounds pretty cool. Love stuff like that, and then our vocals too. So we're just gonna toss some plugins on some different tracks. No, dare I say, we're gonna toss one specific plugin, the RS124, on some tracks, and let's like hear it in different instances. So what's dope, what's so cool is that this band actually gets like they've heard the output, but they don't know what I did. And they actually got like this, boom, this is the guy right here. They got the Abbey Road RS124 on their bass guitar, and they love the way it sounds, but they had no idea what was on there. Check it out. Dude, this thing just like has like the total mojo. All right, let's bypass. So here it like plays into that warmth thing and it limits the dynamic range. It's great. So I'm gonna kind of like mess up what I did already, but I want to add this plugin to different things and kind of show how it goes. So we're gonna go RS124. Let's bring it in. Woo, that's harsh. Let's bring our input control all the way down. So it has that like darker grab that I'm into. I talked earlier in the intro or whatever about studio versus cutter. So the studio is going to grab faster. The cutter is going to let the attack through more. And for that reason, it feels like less aggressive. Oh man, but the resonance on that snare sounds so good on the studio version. You see when I go to the cutter, if like you felt like the cymbals were overwhelming or something like that, you go here and all of a sudden the transients get to pass through and the overall compression grab gets less. It's crazy. Like on the studio, it is aggressive for sure. So this is like basically your subtle setting, and this is your like YOLO setting for sure. Cool, let's move on to something else. So I have not used this on guitar yet, but I'm curious. So compression on guitars is like kind of crazy because it's kind of a pretty compressed signal to begin with. It sounds so good. Listen for that like low mid-range stuff like that. This is what I'm talking about with this particular plugin, that like sort of creamier, low mid-range. It's like what digital often forgets. It makes the resonance of those guitars feel way more like warm yet in your face at the same time. Here's without. See, that sounds kind of brittle. Resonance just rules once we have that on there. And it makes me wonder, like these vocals weren't terrible. They're obviously compressed on the way in, but they felt like, I don't know, they could use some warmth. So let's put that in after a bunch of other things I've got going on. RS124. Let's get into it. Vocals. All right. Dude, hardcore vocals are insane. There's a couple lines in here where I'm just, I can't help but laugh. Place to stay. There is no refuge. Without like the hell. Kind of brittle, right? Like kind of like bright. Boom. Put it on. Place to stay. There is no refuge. That low and that low mid content comes forward. Let's play it. Place to stay. There is no refuge. Without like the hounds. And these are like crazy aggressive settings. We can back it off. Place to stay. There is no refuge. Without like the verses. Place to stay. There is no refuge. It's like ridiculously better. I know compression can be like this subtle thing where you're like, I'm having a hard time hearing it. Rewind, check it out. That's good. Last but not least, certainly not least, this might be some wild stuff, but let's put it on the stereo mix bus. We're going to dial in the amount of gain reduction first, and then we'll boost the output. I mean, that's nuts, right? -10 dB. Let's just see what happens if we take that -10, we push our output attenuator and get back to the level that we were at when we started. It sounds so good. It sounds so aggressive. Like the Beatles had no idea that they were going to inspire a plugin that exists. First of all, they didn't even know computers existed. So it was just like, they're going to inspire a plugin that they think is like cool. Like, we're using it on, extreme metal. It just super comes forward. It sounds warm, and that's what I love. Like, it's the fact that it sounds warm is like the best. All right, here we go. Off. Do you hear that, like, just warm, creamy pump that we're getting? This plugin is so needed right now because it adds texture and it adds depth and it makes things sound big, but not in like an artificial way. And I think we're really like getting somewhere with plugins right now. Like this plugin joins like my short list of plugins that does like, I guess hard air quotes here, but like the analog thing where it's like when you push into it, you get something very different back. It doesn't feel sterile. It doesn't feel choked. I love it. This is going to be a day-to-day for me. Like this is a mainstay. I am so stoked on the voice. So anyway, welcome Abbey Road RS124 with wide open arms. This is good stuff. Excited to put this on every last mix. Anyway, slightly different video. I am Jay Moss. I hope you learned something, and we will talk very soon.